lot of people are avoiding swinging for the fence. They're avoiding betting on themselves and risking something in order to have that version of that life that they really want. They're so afraid to bet on themselves that they're guaranteeing a life of mediocrity for the rest of their lives. So if there was one idea that made the biggest difference in my entire life, it is the concept that I'm going to share today in this podcast episode of the Artful Dollar. And it is something that I call the inner elder. So when I started tattooing when I was 21 years old, I was a dumpster fire of a human being, let's say, to put it lightly. I didn't have a rough childhood. Like, my parents were great. They loved me. Middle class, uphold. My dad is a unlicensed therapist, I like to call him. He's a philosopher. He meets with people one-on-one, basically like a therapy session. But insurance doesn't cover him. So he's not like, I don't know, that's what he is. My mom is an artist. She's a painter. And so I come from a philosopher and a painter, creativity, thinking. That's how I ended up here. I dealt with a lot of emotional issues, psychological issues growing up. When I was 10 years old, I had a complete mental breakdown. I was coming into the entranceway of my school, my grade school. I was in 5th grade. And I looked out at the world, outside of the world of the school doors. I looked out at the street, the people walking on the street. And I felt this heaviness. I felt this sense of, and I remember I'm 10 years old at this time, out those doors, when I go through this rigmarole of a fucking school system that's just training me to work in a fucking factory or behind a desk, and I had some sense of that at an early age. But when I leave these doors, I'm going out into a world where people are chasing money and success, and they're on this hamster wheel, this grind, and it felt very heavy. I remember having this like dread of the idea of growing up and getting older. And I had a complete psychotic break at that moment. I started hallucinating and just deep, dark depression. I was hospitalized. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all of it, but I've been diagnosed with a lot of shit when I was younger. I haven't been on medication or anything in a long time, over a decade. But, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. And in my early 20s, I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I didn't know it at the time because I just thought I was doing what everyone else does, which is you do a little bit of cocaine, you smoke. I smoked so much weed back in the day. I needed substances. I drank a lot, and I needed that to deal with the emotion. I needed a bridge. I needed a filter between the way I felt inside, my emotions, and the outside world. I constantly felt this need to change the way that I feel, to be in control of the way that I feel. If I had a bad day or something was hard or difficult, well, let's smoke some weed and drink about it. If I had a good day, that couldn't possibly be good enough as it is. I need to enhance it somehow with weed and alcohol and cocaine. And I later, when I was 26, came to the personal conclusion that I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. And it was really hard for me to admit that because I had so many things that seemed to be working well in my life. I'm like, I'm not homeless on the street. I'm not paying my bills. I'm a high functioning. And I remember I actually talked to, I was in AA at the time. I talked to an AA sponsor and I said, I'm not sure if I'm one of these people, these alcoholics in this room. And my sponsor at the time, he was ex-heroin addict. And he said, we're all high bottom drunks here, meaning, there's low bottoms, like real dark shit, and then not so low. He's like, we're all high bottom drunks because we bury the low bottoms. Those are the ones that are really having a hard time. They don't fucking make it out alive. And that kind of settled it for me. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm not struggling as much as this person, but you know what? I'm certainly struggling more than this person. Whatever. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop smoking weed. I put it all down when I was 26. I'm 39 now. It's 12 years ago or whatever. And I never thought I was going to make it to 25. Like the way I was living my life, again, that 10-year-old boy that saw the world and saw it as being so dark and heavy and this burden. You have to work to make money. And I just didn't want any of it. And I was surprised that I even made it to 25. And then I turned 26. And I think that was why at that age I started thinking a lot about the future. I started thinking, well, shit, if I made it to fucking 26, what if I make it to 36? Jesus fucking Christ, can you fucking imagine 36? What if I make it to 46? And it just started to like think about like, you know what, Ryan? If you survived all that shit that you went through, fucking getting arrested and drinking and putting all kinds of, I put up like made up fucking drugs. There used to be this fucking white supremacist Nazi guy that worked at a tattoo shop I worked at. He had white power tattooed on the back of his head. He wasn't such a bad guy besides the fact that he was a total fucking racist. I think he was just ignorant. But anyway, he would make these like weird amphetamine drugs and fucking let me try them out. Like I hung out with weird fucking people. I'm a Jew, by the way. I'm not into any of that. But I did some weird, stupid shit when I was younger. And if I fucking survived that, there's a fucking good chance that I'm going to end up being 46, 56. What if I ended up being 85 or 90 years old? And I just started to like think, wow, it's like this version of me that exists. And I started looking into quantum physics and all these other things I got really fascinated with, spirituality, energy, and looking at the way time works. And, you know, the way we experience time as a human being in the three-dimensional world, we experience it as this thing that happened, is happening, and will happen. But quantum physics tells us that time is nothing like that. Time is actually a measurement of space-time. It's one thing. And that on a quantum level, like the subatomic particles that make up you and me and the desk in front of me and the microphone I'm talking into, the subatomic particles, they don't experience time as a past, present, future. In fact, the present can impact the past and the future can impact the present on a quantum level. They're on this kind of, Mobius strip time. I don't know. My human brain can't possibly. It's limited in its ability to comprehend these things. I think that's why quantum theorists are such fascinating and strange human beings. And I don't even think they fully understand it, right? In fact, the only thing that scientists truly know for sure is that we don't fucking know how any of this fucking reality works. And the only thing we can be sure of is that it doesn't work the way that we experience it, because at the fundamental levels of reality, none of this table ain't even solid. It's 99.9% empty space in between all the atoms that make this up. And the only thing that makes this desk solid or this screen here is my consciousness projecting itself onto that. And so I started to just question everything. Maybe that's why I went fucking insane when I was 10 years old. And I thought, well, if the present can impact the past and the future can impact the present, I started looking at like the idea of the inner child, right? I was trying to do some of that work, heal my relationship with my inner child, that scared little boy that was so afraid of the world outside of those glass doors. I was like, what if there's this inner elder, this older 80-year-old version of Ryan that already exists right now? What if I could heal, create a relationship with that version of myself? And so that's when on my own, no one, as far as I know, has ever used or coined this term inner elder. But that's when I started to write and speak to and create the life of my inner elder. Like, what are the concerns that 80-year-old Ryan has? How does his back feel after, at the time, I thought I was going to tattoo for forever. I'm making a plan for a comeback, by the way. Stay tuned for that, because I miss tattooing deeply. I assumed that my back was going to hurt, and I'm going to get out of bed, and everything's going to feel stiff. And, where does my inner elder want to live in the world? What kind of a life does he want to have? And is the version of me right now living a life that is taking care of both me in the present, but also me in the future and me in the past, right? How do I live a holistic life, a whole life on all timelines that actually in real reality are all happening simultaneously? And that was, that was shortly after I got sober, but I think these ideas were all sort of spinning around in my mind. And so the inner elder, I want you, the listener, to think about your inner elder. Just take a moment and just picture. This is why I got so obsessed with the idea of retirement in my 20s. What 20-year-old gets obsessed? I was 26, 27 when I got really obsessed with it, and got so obsessed with it that I went on to become a licensed financial advisor for a period of time after 13 years of tattooing. What does your inner elder want out of their life, right? If you're 80 years old, there's a chance you've got at least another 5 to 10 plus years. And people live long these days, right? Even in your 70s, right? The average age, and it ranges, but anywhere between 79 to 85 is these days, at least in America. And it's different all over the world, and different genders and races and sexes and all this stuff. But for intents and purposes, if you're 70 years old, what do you want that last 5 fucking years of your life to be about? Do you want it to be about the hamster wheel grind of needing to trade time for money every day, every week, every month just to be able to survive? And if you don't, if that version of you doesn't, whose responsibility is it to take care of your inner elder? No one is going to do it for you. No one's going to do it for me. And I think these ideas both terrified me and also kind of excited me. I was like, ooh, what if I could take action now? And I think the hardest part about like saving for retirement is the fact that you feel like you're just throwing money into something that you're never ever going to see again. But that same kind of excitement that I would get when I like buy some stupid shit on Amazon that I don't fucking need, that serotonin kick, I get that when I contribute to my retirement account, because I know I've spent hours, journals, like thick writing about this version of myself, getting to know my inner elder and what's important to him, what his priorities are. And a quote I heard a while ago, but I've said a couple of times, is there's only 2 people that you need to impress: your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And I think a lot of people are spending and wasting a lot of time impressing or trying to impress people out here, and it has nothing to do. Your 80 and your 8-year-old self don't fucking care about 90% of the shit that you're worried about right now. Think back 10 years, right? If you're in your 20s, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. If you're in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s, just think back 10 years. Think about the shit that you were concerned with then, the things that really mattered to you, right? I was 29 10 years ago. I was growing my tattoo studio. I was hiring people. I had an apprentice. I was really building a business for myself and my future. And now I am this like online persona that fucking talks to hundreds of thousands of people every single month through all platforms. And it's crazy. But I have a kid. I didn't have a kid then. I have a house, I have responsibilities, I have weight on my shoulders, shit that I care about now. My 29-year-old self didn't care about that kind of shit. I was running a lot of the time. I was training for cycle racing. I had concerns. I had needs and wants. The things I'm concerned about now, like I'm just trying to not get crazy fat. Like that's my fitness goal. I work out. It's like just don't get morbidly obese. That's my fitness goal, and I'm accomplishing that. I want to lose maybe another 10, 20 pounds, but I'm not looking for a 6-pack. But again, what are my concerns when I'm 80 years old? The things that we worry about now, our 80-year-old self ain't going to fucking worry about that. And if you could talk to that version of yourself and ask them, how am I doing right now? Are you proud of me? What should I be paying attention to? Right? Because if you were to ask anyone in your life right now what you should be paying attention to, they're going to give you a very different answer than what your 80-year-old self would say. And when you start to think of your life in terms of decades rather than thinking in terms of years or months or weeks, which for a long time in my life, I was kind of just thinking about life in terms of weeks, right? And then maybe it went out to months. I'm like, how do I just get to the end of the month? What's going to matter to me at the end of the month? Okay, paying my bills and my rent, and okay, do I have enough weed to get through the next week or whatever it was when I was still using? That's what mattered to me then. I was thinking in terms of weeks and months. And then I started to think in terms of years, like, oh, wow, I'm getting older. What's going to matter to me at 27, at 28, at 29? And then I started thinking in terms of decades and like quarter centuries, right? Because the things in life that are the sweetest fruits that life has to offer are never things that come to you in a matter of months or years. Like, think about it. Think about the people that have accomplished truly extraordinary feats. And I don't make this podcast for people that just want to survive and live an ordinary life. No, I personally hope and believe that the people that listen to this podcast are people that are up to some shit, that want to accomplish big fucking goals. You want to retire, buy a house, maybe even own some property, maybe even have a little compound. Who doesn't want a compound? I was out at Alex Gray and Allison Gray's compound in upstate New York, and they actually invited Alex and Allison Gray invited me and my wife to come and hang out, because long story, but anyway, they personally invited us to come and spend time with them. It was fucking wild, and they showed us around their whole art studio. They gave us a private tour, and we just spent time. In fact, they drove us to the train afterwards. Alex Gray was my Uber driver, which is crazy, but yeah, we had a good laugh, we had a good time. And when we were staying at the house overnight, you can rent rooms. There were a couple people in the morning, there's a little breakfast area, and there were some other people there, and they were all talking about it, like, we want to start a compound. You want to start a compound? We want to start a compound. What? Are we doing this? Are we starting a compound right now? Like, I feel like, who doesn't want their own little compound where all their friends and like work on art projects and make music, and like, why wouldn't you want that? My 80-year-old self certainly wants that. In fact, I know my 80-year-old self has a little house, community, art, creativity, a garden. He wakes up in the morning and makes coffee for his gorgeous wife, Thamai, and they sip and go for a walk around the garden. I picture this, like, this is what I want to do. And then I look at my life now and I'm like, am I living my life now in alignment with the version of myself that already has that stuff? And if I'm not, then I need to make some changes now. And it takes something that feels like it's some long, it's vague and cloudy. Why would I work out? Why would I save money? I've literally talked to people that have like told me, they're like, Ryan, I'm not even sure what the point of saving money is. Like, I don't have any debt, and so I'm doing good, right? And it's like, you're living on a knife's edge. And I didn't realize that. I didn't see it that way. But when I looked at, okay, well, what does it take to retire? I'm going to get right back to this episode. But if you've been following me on Instagram or listening to this podcast for a while, you might be familiar with a workshop that I've led a couple times called the Booked in 48 Workshop, that has often helped tattooers book tattoos in under 48 hours. I've led it live now about 7 times. And before this, we would only make it available to people who came live or to anyone that did book a one-on-one strategy session. But there's been a lot of demand for it, and I want to make it available to more tattooers at a lower price. And so now, for the first time ever, you can actually get access to the recording and all the live resources to help you book tattoos, sometimes very quickly. Sometimes it might take a little bit of consistency, but either way, you're not going to book less tattoos. I'll say that. For $48, you can get access to everything and the private school community. If you look through here, there's a couple windows with some case studies and testimonials from people that have taken it. So if you're on the fence and you're like, I want to see what other tattooers have to say about it, you can come here and listen, hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Click on the link in the caption if you want to learn more about it. We do also have a 100% money back guarantee. So literally, worst case scenario, you get your money back. Best case scenario, you use it, you do it, and you book out your whole next week. Check out the link for more details. And now back to this episode. Okay, well, what does it take to retire? And for anyone who wants some like rough numbers here, roughly takes saving and investing 10% of what you make. So let's say you make $80,000 a year. Takes saving and investing about $8,000 a year. You could put $7,000 into an IRA, and the other $1,000 you have to throw in something else because you'd max out your IRA, or you could do a SEP IRA, and there's all these kinds of different ways you could do it. I digress. It takes saving 10% of what you earn for 30 years. That's what it takes on average. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But when I realized that, and I was like, I'm terrible at saving money. I'm not going to do that. Like I'm not saving 1%. Like I'm putting $1,000 in savings when I have a good week, and then I have a slow week or a bad week and I take the $1,000 out, and then I have a good week and I put $800 in, and then something happens and I take $800. Like I was just dipping back into the honey pot, and I realized I was stealing from my inner elder. When I started to create a relationship with this version of myself, this 80-year-old version that lives this life. First of all, every dollar that you save and invest roughly becomes $10 30 years from now. So when you start to think about that, you're like, ooh, that dollar, I could buy this bag of chips that costs $1. But if I was speaking in terms of 30-year, like what's the value of that dollar if it had been invested for 30 years, that bag of chips costs my inner elder $10. It's a very different perspective. That's why mindset is 90%, 99%. I think I'm being generous when I say that mindset is, or I'm being stingy when I say that it's only 90%. It's really 99%, because when you start to shift your perspective around things, all of a sudden, I can't afford a $10 bag of chips when I put it in that perspective. My inner elder, he's got some big goals. He's got some ideas, right? He's want to be posted up on a dock of a boathouse with his feet up in the air, reading a book, swatting away mosquitoes, and, watching his grandchildren run around and swing on a tire swing. Like, that's what my inner elder wants. Like, if I'm ever going to create that version of my life, I have to make some changes about the version of my life now. But if I'm not clear on what that version looks like, that 80-year-old, 90-year-old self. Imagine getting to 90 years old and realizing you ain't got a fucking dime left, and then you got to go back and work. I mean, that's the reality that most people are going to live into. They're going to have to trade time for money until they die. And it's not necessary. You don't have to. And I think if you're listening to this podcast, again, you're the type of person that wants to play the game of life where you swing for the fence. You're not swinging to just get on base. And that's the version of life that I want to play, because either one of two things is going to happen. Either I'm going to fucking knock it out of the park. I'm going to swing for the fence. I'm going to get everything I ever wanted. Or I'm not, right? And I'm going to gain so much, right? You shoot for the moon, you might fall amongst the stars. But if you don't shoot for that, like, you just end up fucking dragging along, right? Even if I don't get it, I'm not attached. High intention, low attachment. I'm not attached that I must create this version of my life. No, my life is an exciting adventure on the journey towards that goal. But it's the process, it's the people that I meet, it's the lessons that I learn, the challenges that I face. I have some hard, crazy fucking challenges in my life right now that my 29-year-old version of myself would be like, what? Are you kidding me? You got $10,000 a week in payroll to pay employees? Are you fucking kidding? That's insane. Stop doing that. That sounds terrible. Yeah, that's what I do. Between me and my employees, I have to pay out $10,000 a week in payroll. And it's an opportunity. It's an honor to be in a position to have the problems I have, because truly they're not problems. They're breakdowns that create breakthroughs. And a lot of people are avoiding swinging for the fence. They're avoiding betting on themselves and risking something in order to have that version of that life that they really want. They're so afraid to bet on themselves that they're guaranteeing a life of mediocrity for the rest of their lives. And so a lot of people trade a guaranteed life of mediocrity and struggle so that they never have to risk failing at trying to accomplish their goals. And for me, that is absolutely unacceptable. It's no judgment on anyone else. That's fine. There's a lot of ways to live your life. And again, I'm really not trying to make any judgment on it, but like, that's just not exciting for me. That doesn't light me up. I didn't get into tattooing. I didn't start working for myself to just follow a beaten path that millions of other people have followed. I think that 10-year-old version of myself, that child that was so afraid when he looked out at the street of all the busy people out there, I think he was truly afraid that he was going to, I don't know, walk the same trodden, darkened path that other people seem to be following. And that for some reason scared me. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not normal. I don't think you are either. And I don't think there's a problem with that. I think we should embrace extraordinary goals. We should celebrate extraordinary goals. There isn't a lot of that in tattooing, honestly. There's a lot of crab mentality out there. Right now, there's a lot of tattooers quitting tattooing. And then I see the posts from other tattooers that are shaming other people for quitting tattooing. You think they fucking want to? And no, it's not because they don't love tattooing. That is not why tattoo artists are quitting. Because I've talked to tattooers. I talked to a tattooer. He posted he was quitting. I went to his page. I looked at his work. His work was fucking phenomenal. And I reached out to him and said, hey, dude, I really don't want to see you quit tattooing. I've got something that I think can help you. I normally charge for it, but I'll give it to you for free. I just want to see you book some tattoos. And I gave it to him and he did it. And he booked out his whole next month. And now we're working together, right? He ended up signing up for the full Artful Marketer program, but I didn't do that with the intention of making money. I simply did it with the goal of like, I hate seeing tattooers giving up on the goal, on the dream, on the life that they know they're capable of living, but they're just in a stuck place or in a difficult place. There's a lot of changes happening right now and people are scared, but you can't, in that fear, I talked about this on my last week in the mindset call in the Artful Marketer. Every Wednesday we do mindset. And I talked about doubt and uncertainty. And if you really think about it, doubt and uncertainty exists on a short timeline, but we project it out into forever. Meaning, think back 10 years, think of the shit that you were unsure of, that you were doubtful of, that you were afraid of happening. 99.9% of the shit that you were afraid of, that you were uncertain of, that you doubted, or that caused you fear of the future, 99.9% of it never fucking happened. Maybe a few of those things actually came to fruition, but you know what? All these other things happened. And if that's the case 10 years ago, then it's very likely that 10 years from now, whatever you're worried about, whatever is weighing on your soul heavy today in this moment, 10 years from now, you will have completely forgotten it. Or you might think back and you're like, oh yeah, oh shit, that was crazy. That was some weird shit going on. That was tough. But, you know, it fucking worked out. And I did this episode a while ago. It's one of the most popular episodes of this podcast was on Carl Jung. And I interviewed ChatGPT Carl Jung. People bring it up a lot when I talk to tattooers. They're like, oh, that episode is really, really great. And I talked about synchronicity. And so when I first started saving for retirement, I already knew I was behind, right? That was when I was 26 and I was already behind. A lot of people are behind on this, but I said, you know what? I have no idea how I'm going to be able to make the money or save the money or accomplish that long goal, but I'm going to plant my flag and say, hey, I'm going to play the game. I'm going to figure it out as I go along. And as I furthered my understanding, my perspective, especially around the philosophy of synchronicity, I realized I really don't need to have it all figured out before I jump, before I leap, before I commit to the future. I think most people are waiting. They feel like they must have at least 80% of it figured out before I commit to that future. And you end up robbing yourself of that future because you never committed. You're waiting for permission from who? No one's going to give you permission and no one's going to fucking do it for you. You have to take your life by the fucking cojones and fucking take it. If you want to eat, you have to go out, hunt it, kill it, drag it home and eat it. That's how business works. And people are afraid of committing to that future. And so they play these short-term games. They think in terms of months and weeks. And I'm challenging you today on this episode to really take some time. If you leave this episode and you do anything after this, I really highly invite you to, one, here, it's a 3-part assignment, okay? I want you to walk around the block, walk around your apartment, wherever your house, wherever your yard. And I want you to just think about while you're walking. I love to walk and think. Just ponder what your 80-year-old self cares about, what they want their life to look like. What do they want to do? Do they want to be tattooing every fucking day, 5 days a week, day in and day out, hustling, grinding, pumping out flash, and slinging scabs? Probably not. I know a lot of y'all want to tattoo from womb to tomb, but like the reality is your 80-year-old self, if you're really fucking honest with yourself, probably doesn't want to do that every fucking day. Maybe they do it once in a while. So give it some thought. Then I want you to sit and just get in touch with your breath. Just ground yourself. Just breathe. Just slow your breath. Bring your attention to your breath. I don't care if you do it for 30 fucking seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but give yourself some attention to your breath. It calms your nervous system. When your nervous system eases and softens up, we are more open to that thread of synchronicity that is right there in front of you, right? You're moving forward in life, or at least the illusion is that you're moving forward in life. Really, time doesn't work that way. But you're perceiving life happening that way. And there's this thread of synchronicity. And around the corner, you don't know what's there. And right now, you're feeling fear or uncertainty or doubt. But around the corner, it ain't fucking matter anymore. And we don't know when we're turning that corner. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what's over there. When you calm your nervous system, when you're not in that fight or flight, when that trauma response, because that's really what triggers your nervous system, is there's some trauma response. And it's a triggering word for some people, but pay attention to your breath. It will ground, calm your nervous system. And then I want you to write about your 80-year-old life. And I want you to swing for the motherfucking fence. No one's going to read this. You don't have to justify it to anyone. You don't have to figure out. And I want you to pay attention to that thought that runs through your head. It's like, no, you can't do that. No, yeah, that's too, no. What do people think if you actually had $1 million in the bank, if you owned a house, if you actually had this life where you didn't constantly have to make enough, but you actually made and had more than you need? God forbid, what if people think of you? They might call you a sellout or greedy or anything. And no, let me subconsciously self-sabotage to keep myself in a state of constant survival so that I never have to risk being perceived as greedy or selfish. God forbid. All of that internal... The reason I can spit that so clearly is because I've been practicing for years to listen to the internal dialogue. And that's what my internal dialogue says. I'm like, okay, I hear you. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you. So I literally do this. I thank it for sharing whatever crazy narrative, whatever scarcity, fear-based narrative my mind says. It's only out for survival. That's why you have that internal dialogue. Your brain is optimized. It's evolved over millions of years to optimize for survival. And being judged by your peers and being cast from the tribe would mean certain death. And so that internal dialogue is going to convince you you're not the dialogue. You, listening to the voice that comes out of my mouth, you are not the thoughts in your head. You're not that internal dialogue that runs in your brain 24/7, 365. You have a voice in your head that talks to you that you misinterpret as being who you are, but that isn't who you are, right? Who's the you that's thinking, what do you mean, Ryan? What do you mean I have a thought in my head, right? That's the thought in your head. Who's the you that's listening to the thought that had the thought about the thought in your head? That's who you are. Get to know that person. Practice awareness for the thought. So listen to it. It's a survival mechanism. It used to help you. It used to benefit you, but it's like you're operating on Windows 95 and it's fucking 2025 right now. Your thought processing, your software, your internal software needs to be upgraded. And the only way we can do that is to uninstall the old software. And the only way we can remove that old programming that's inside between your ears is 1, listen to it, be aware of it. 2, don't judge it. Don't criticize it. Don't, just be aware. In fact, I invite you to be curious and almost playful. Like imagine you were an alien. for another solar system, another galaxy, and you inhabited a human body, and you're like, whoa, this is what it's like to be a human being. This is interesting. I've got these limbs. Where are all my other limbs? Why do I only have 4? And then you're like, whoa, there's a voice running around in my head. Fascinating. What does it have to say? Oh, that I'm not enough, and I'm unlovable, and I'm fat, and I'm poor, and I'm not, or whatever this fucking says. You're going to fail? That's interesting. Why? Wow. That's so cool. There's like this little voice that like says weird stuff. I don't know. I don't like what it's saying. Like if I could choose to think anything, I certainly wouldn't choose those thoughts. But that's fascinating that that's what's there. Thank it. Be grateful for it, because it did help you survive some point in life. And you don't have to do the work. You can if you want to look back and say, well, what part of my life was that beneficial? Just know that it benefited you. Just know that it truly did serve a purpose, and it no longer does. We thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that I'm fat and poor, and I'm a failure, and I'm a horrible human being. I so appreciate you sharing that. That's not needed at this time. I'm working on a few other projects, like creating the life of my wildest dreams. And so I'm going to unsubscribe, but I appreciate everything that you have to offer. You'll notice the more you practice awareness of that internal dialogue, that you would never choose those thoughts, right? If you wrote out everything that your brain thinks, you'd be like, I wouldn't choose to think these thoughts, and yet you are. So that's another way you know that you are not the thoughts in your head, is if you're thinking thoughts that you wouldn't choose. If you could choose to think any thoughts and you wouldn't choose to think the thoughts that are in your head, who's the you that wouldn't choose to think the thoughts? Right? Your thinking is like breathing, right? You don't decide to breathe in and out. It just happens. Now you can control your breath, just like you can think and then not think. You can be aware of your thoughts. You can think about a pink elephant. Now you just thought about a pink elephant, right? But if we aren't actively practicing awareness of the thoughts, just like if we're not actively practicing awareness of the breath, then it will just keep thoughting. It's a thoughting machine. Your lungs are a breathing machine. Your brain is a thoughting machine, and it will just keep doing its thing. And so by practicing self-awareness of it, noticing it, thinking it, being playful and curious with it, and then you can start to introduce a new operating system, a new way of thinking about the world in the future. And that new operating system might be vastly different. Here's the thing. When you start to do this stuff, it might feel a little scary. It might feel like it might even feel like death, because that's what ego death is dying to the old version of the identity that felt like it must cling on tightly to these old held beliefs. God forbid, if it were to let go, it would fall off the face of the earth and die. Letting go of that is a form of ego death. And starting to challenge that old way of thinking by introducing new thoughts that sometimes they feel very cringe. And so my definition of cringe, if you haven't heard it before, I might have shared it, but is when you're adult programming the things and the people and the mentors and the social circles and all the things that kind of decided how you're supposed to be and think as an adult, all that external programming that you never chose to download. You didn't choose to hit subscribe. It just ended up in your inbox. When that adult programming judges something that your inner child is actually excited by, like you have a thought about like, ooh, what if I wanted to build a business that earned $1 million a year? I don't know. That's crazy. You might have a thought like that. Like, that would be cool. Or I want to earn passive income, or I want to invest in real estate. And then I'm like, ooh, or I want to make content, and I actually want to connect with my ideal clients so that I could book more tattoos. And then you're like, the thought of it is cringy to you. Or you see someone else doing it and you're like, yeah, fuck that person. Why? Who? Why? What? Why does that trigger you? Why does that? Because there's something in your programming, there's something in your inner child that is excited by that, and something in your adult programming that is shaming your inner child for even being excited by that. And so rather than actually embracing the cringe, which I invite you to try out, it's pretty exciting, I will say, we have to judge and shame and throw shade at other people. And that's what cringe is. When you practice this and you develop a relationship with your inner elder and you start to let go of the old programming that no longer serves you and you start to write a new line of code, it takes practice, right? You've been practicing the old way of thinking for probably 10 plus years, right? Money is evil and, I can't have more than I need because that's what rich people do and rich people are bad. And so I have to stay broke and poor for the rest of my life because then I won't be judged, blah, blah, blah. Old programming. Be aware of it. Start to write a new way of thinking, right? One of the mantras I've used the most in my whole life, and I offer it to you. If it excites you, take it. If it doesn't, give it away, is money is a flow of energy. It flows to me. It flows through me. And all I have to do is not block the flow. That's it. You've been practicing some old mantra. That's what mantra means, by the way, is instrument of the mind. So you've been dancing to some old instrument, some old tune, some old way of thinking. You've been reciting the same thoughts, the same worries, the same doubts, the same fears for how long? Would you like to continue to recite those old mantras? That worry, that shame, that fear, that feeling of not being enough, of being unlovable and unsafe? Do you want to keep reciting that mantra? Or would you like to stop practicing that and practice something new? And when you practice something new, it will take time. It will, it's not going to immediately all right, my life is just so much better because I repeated a mantra in the mirror. Oh my goodness. But you could try it and you could try it and you could try it again and again and again. And that's how you practice that. And that's how you shift your perspective. And then you shift your perspective, you shift your thoughts, you shift your actions, you shift your habits, you shift your identity. And when you've shifted your identity, you've really shifted your life. And that's the purpose of mindset. That's how life actually changes when you change your mindset. So I hope I've accomplished at least a little bit of that today. I could give you a whole lesson on marketing and make content and talk out on the screen, but none of that will make the big impact on your life that is truly my intention, my goal with all the work that I do, with the podcast, with the content, with all the courses that I lead, is to make a big impact. And you don't make a big impact without making big waves that ripple out. Some people like it and some people don't. But I hope I've accomplished at least a little bit of that today. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you for letting me rant. I've been inspired. I will say this. One last thing. I've been really inspired recently because it's the end of the year. And I've seen quite a few people tag me or tag the Artful Dollar on Instagram because they listen to their Spotify. They look at their top 10. And so many of you, I'm in your top 5 fucking podcasts. That's insane to me that I fucking show up and I rant to I'm literally looking at a reflection of myself in a screen, and it means a lot to me, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for listening to this podcast, for using it, practicing it, sharing it. If you've liked, if you've left a review, or you've told anyone about it, it means the world to me. That's literally all the payment I could ever ask for, is a like, a subscribe, or sharing it with someone. That's literally, you don't owe me anything, but if you, at the very least, I so appreciate that. And so I've been inspired to keep doing it, keep going, because I've just gotten that feedback from so many tattooers tagging me or telling me in person at the Eden Symposium how many of you listen to this podcast. So it means the world to me, and I'm speaking directly to you. If that's you, thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your life. And I'll see you next time on the Artful Dollar. Take care. All right, if you found this episode helpful, one of the best ways for you to help other artists is to share this episode. Leave a review and subscribe. It helps other people find my channel, and you never know what a difference it might make for someone else. Plus, I will forever be grateful for your support. So I just want to say thank you and have a great rest of your day.